spoken to him multiple times before, and in April, it'll be the 2-year anniversary of his diagnosis with glioblastoma. We've previously talked to him about some of his playwriting, which he's written stage plays about his experience with his diagnosis and some of the lessons he's learned throughout his battle with glioblastoma. Joining us once again on the Oakland County Megacast is Eric Goldstein. Eric, thank you for being with us once again.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you with us. It's been months since we've last had you in touch. How have you been holding up? How are you doing at this time?
I'm having a good day and I'm having a good month, so I'll take it.
All right, and so for those that may not have seen your earlier appearances, can you tell our audience just what glioblastoma is?
Glioblastoma is a type of brain cancer. It's one of the most aggressive types of brain cancer there is. If you're old enough to remember the Looney Tunes cartoons, it is the Tasmanian devil of brain tumors, if you will. We manage it very, very delicately and thoroughly. And quite frankly, my being here today is an evidence of beating the odds. Life expectancy is very short for this type of cancer.
Can you talk about the various survival rates for those with glioblastoma and how that changes as each year passes?
Right. There's these global statistical studies about overall survivability, and I don't have them memorized, but the basic idea is just about half of the people who are diagnosed with this die within a year, and about 70 to 80% die within 2 years. Once you get to the 3-year mark, the proportion of that original group that lives through a given year starts to increase as compared to those who die. So I'm looking forward to getting to that 3-year mark. That's my optimism and that's my hope. And that's when the odds start to maybe become less severe. But at the end of 5 years, generally speaking, about 5 to 6% of those who got it are still alive.
We're joined by Eric Goldstein, who is a playwright, also an attorney with the city of Livonia, and we've had him on previously talking about his battle with glioblastoma, which he's written plays about his journey and about how it's changed his perspective on living, even with a disease that for many has been deadly. One of the more important parts of your treatment has been Optune. Can you tell us about that particular treatment and what that has done for you?
I'd be happy to. The Optune device, I'm not actually wearing it at the moment. We have to give my skin a break every few days to let it recover. You can see some red marks on my head. It is affixed to my head with these giant Band-Aid-like things, and it projects an electric signal, an oscillating electric signal into the brain. It's called a tumor treatment field. And what that does is if it captures a tumor cell within the field, it'll prevent the tumor cell from dividing so that one cell doesn't become two. And that's basically how the tumors grow. If we're really lucky, it might even kill the cell that's trying to divide. So this is a non-invasive treatment. It does not involve taking chemo medication. You don't have the side effects of chemo. It's not radiation. All it is an electric field, and you just have to wear it all the time, except for giving your skin a break, which we're doing right now. Just bad timing for you not to be able to see it, but good timing for my skin to recover.
Yes, good timing for your skin, definitely, and it's doing great work when it is on your head. Is this something that's relatively common in the treatment of glioblastoma, or is the use of this Optune device something relatively new or experimental?
It's not experimental. It was approved for this specific treatment by the FDA, I believe 8 or 9 years ago. It's expanding its use. They're expanding its use into other forms of cancer as the science evolves and demonstrates that it's possible. I'm not a full expert on it, but I understand they're looking into mesothelioma, a type of lung cancer that involves asbestos exposure. I believe they're using it with uterine cancer, but I don't know if those are at the stages of being FDA approved or if it's still experimental. With the glioblastoma brain cancer, it has been shown to make a statistical improvement. You get a bump in your overall survivability. It almost doubles your chances of making it 5 years.
And so how long have you been using the Optune device?
We started using it in July of 2020.
Okay, so shortly after you were diagnosed.
Right. You know, we discovered there was a tumor in April. We rushed to surgery, overcoming COVID obstacles, which was very challenging, and got the surgery, and they pulled the tumor out. They did a pathology and discovered it was a glioblastoma tumor. They set me up for radiation and chemotherapy. And then when I had sufficiently recovered from that initial course, we started the Optune. And that was by July.
Just how common, to your knowledge and from your discussion with doctors, if this has come up, how common of a treatment is Optune? Because you started on it a couple of years ago. I'm not sure when it was introduced after approval from the FDA for treatment of glioblastoma, but if it was only just a few years ago, it would still be a relatively new treatment. How common is this in treating glioblastoma?
I expect it is increasingly common and routine for glioblastoma patients for whom it makes sense. There are like large metropolitan centers where there's big hospital systems with specialized cancer treatment programs. They're going to be strong advocates for using Optune. If you're living out in the country or in less developed metropolitan areas where the hospital is more equipped to dealing with non-oncology issues, non-cancer issues, there's going to be less familiarity with Optune. And even if the hospital system just has a general oncologist, not one specializing in brain cancer, it may not be on their radar. And if it is, they might even be skeptical of it.
We're joined by Eric Goldstein. He is an attorney with the city of Livonia, also a playwright. We've talked to him previously about a web production he did of one of his plays, Here We Go, in September of 2021. So when we talked to you then, you were in the middle of the production of that play. It was being done virtually because at the time we were still dealing with COVID-19 cases. For those that were not tuned in that day or have not heard of Here We Go, can you give them a little bit of an overview of that production, of that story, and what your inspiration was behind producing that?
Here We Go was prompted by a desire to tell the story of having a regular life, being struck by cancer, this lightning strike, and then finding a way forward and making the observation that I'm not different from other people. I just have a heads up that I'm going to be dying sooner than later, and how that affects me. You might think it's a morbid, sad story, but it's really not. It's a story about universals, about the meaning of life and what makes a life like a joyous thing. I put us in the context of history, you know, and our ancestors and our kids to come after us, and I also have in it a very uplifting ending. What I'd like to say more about is the feedback I've gotten from people who've watched Here We Go. It's on YouTube for free. Glioblastoma patients from around the world have contacted me and told me how grateful they were to see me wearing the Optune device, and that they felt less isolated. And it gave them the vocabulary to talk about things they needed to talk about but didn't know how to. But more importantly, for me, people without glioblastoma, people just having struggles in their lives, found this to be an inspirational story. It gave them hope. It gave them strength to persevere and overcome their challenges. And that was very fulfilling and satisfying for me to know that just telling my story was helpful to other people.
We're joined by Eric Goldstein on the Oakland County Megacast, playwright who wrote Here We Go, and that began to be shown in September of 2021. We've talked to him previously. We're catching up with him now. Lately, you've been spending these days with others who have been diagnosed with glioblastoma and helping them along their journey. Where did that start, and what sort of new inspiration have you taken from your experience consulting with them on their journey and tailoring in your experience over these past 2 years battling glioblastoma?
Well, I've found a number of there are, this is COVID, so it's not like there's a club or you can go to a support group that's tailored to glioblastoma. But online, I have found a listserv. I have found a number of closed Facebook groups. Closed by meaning you have to apply or be invited in because you qualify. There's glioblastoma Facebook groups. There's the Optune users Facebook group. There's a caregivers Facebook group I just learned about the other day. I have been an active participant in a number of these groups as we try to all help each other. It's not like I'm a savior or anything. We are all just peers dealing with similar things and trying to help each other and problem solve and troubleshoot. Have I answered your question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. We're joined by Eric Goldstein. He is a playwright, also a city attorney with the city of Livonia, joining us on the Oakland County Megacast. So at this time, Here We Go has been showing for about 6 months since its premiere on YouTube. And any other works that you're doing in theater at this time, or any other writing that of projects that you're working on that we should be on the lookout for?
Well, we are. I finished directing a play, and it ran just a few months ago with the Rosedale Community Players. We had started it before COVID and before the cancer, and then as the situation lightened up, I think it was last September or so that we retook the rehearsal stage and we performed it. That was a lot of fun through the Rosedale Community Players in Southfield, Michigan. I'm on the outlook for interesting and good projects. I've got a few things in the works, but nothing that I'd like to tell you to be on the lookout for. It's, I think, too soon for that.
For you, has having the opportunity to be back out there and potentially go back to in-person theater or more regular interaction with the theater as you were able to do pre-pandemic and of course pre-diagnosis, how does that help you in your personal recovery journey, going back and having that opportunity potentially to do something that you've enjoyed for a long time, that you also tailored into your initial recovery from glioblastoma?
Well, one of the problems a lot of glioblastoma patients, particularly those who wear the Optune device, which is a very conspicuous thing.
Sure.
It brands you as being other, on appearance. Many of us don't want to be others. We don't want to be the stranger or the weirdo. We are still who we are. We're just dealing with a particular form of cancer, but we're still the same people we were beforehand. And what getting out and living my life as best as I can pushes back against that feeling of being other. But at the same time, if I can just segue to the other side of that coin,
sure.
It can be often very discouraging, recognizing that you're suffering from a life-shortening condition for which there's no cure. I mean, that's why I go in to get an MRI every 60 days. I mean, as great as Optune is, it's not perfect. And so we want to catch the signs of tumor growth as quickly as we can. And it makes no sense to go get an MRI every day. So somebody smart figured out 60 days is the right ratio on some cost benefit analysis. We do that because we want to catch the tumor if it starts to grow again. And the specter of living like that, like, if you're old enough, you remember Tarzan, who would swing from vine to vine to vine. We're swinging from MRI to MRI to MRI, and it took me months to get past the idea that, yeah, I can think beyond 60 days. For a while, I didn't think beyond 60 days, but now I do, with hope and optimism and Optune, yay Optune. But during it's very, some people would say, well, and live your life to the fullest, live every day to get the most out of it. And I disagree. That would be very exhausting. Very exhausting. I would rather have a normal life than a life filled with sprinting adventures every day. So how do you find a path or a metric that tells you what's a good day in this? And I would say, with glioblastoma, and I'd say it would be the same kind of metrics to define what would be a good day regularly. And that's a personal choice. But for me, I've kind of narrowed it down to three things. If at the end of the day, I can say yes to just one of these three questions, then it's a good day. And I think anyone can use these three questions. It doesn't have to be a cancer patient. Have I been useful? Have I been creative? Have I learned something? If you can say yes to just one of those things, then you had a good day. And if you have good day after good day after good day, that's what you can call a meaningful life.
Eric, thank you so much for joining us.
Glad to be here.